31st.
Welcome to a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. It is the evening of October 16th, 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Invite you to stand and join us in an invocation tonight led by Pastor David Parker of the Oak Harbor First United Methodist Church. And after the invocation, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor and council members and citizens. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for the privilege of living together in this city. We are grateful that you have made us residents and stewards of this part of your creation. We thank you tonight for our elected officials, for their time, devotion, and service to our community. We pray for our council members that they will grasp the breadth and the depth of all of the important issues, the factors, variables, and challenges that will come their way this night and, of course, in the months to come. Grant them steady hands, ordered minds, wise hearts, and discerning spirits so that they will know what is best for our community. In the days of ancient Israel, the sons of Issachar were said to have discerned the times, and they knew what Israel should do. So, God, this is the kind of leadership wisdom that we are asking for our council, that together they might prosper this city into a haven of hope, civility, and goodwill, into a city of thriving commerce, trade, and government, into a community and a culture of civic pride and neighborly love. So let this be the vision and the spirit that prevails among us. In the name of Jesus, who brings us into abundant life. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Parker. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We do have a couple of councilors missing tonight. Councilor Heisen and Councilor Wiesner have informed us that they are unable to join us, so I would entertain a motion to excuse them. Mayor Pro Tem.
I move we excuse Councilman Heisen and Councilman Wiesner for tonight.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to excuse the two councilors, Heisen and Wiesner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. For the agenda, I would like to announce an addition, and that is an executive session that staff is proposing to be added as agenda item 11A to discuss potential property acquisition as authorized under RCW 4230-110-B-1, acquisition of real estate. And I would entertain a motion, unless anybody else got any changes, to add that to our agenda. Yes, Councilor Wassinger.
I move to add executive session A to the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Councilor Wassinger, it's second by Councilor Servadius to add executive session 11A to the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I assume we have no other, yes, Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as amended. Motion by Councilor Servadius, second by Councilor Almberg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Passes unanimously. We'll move on to presentations. And tonight we have a proclamation in recognition of Civility First, and I believe that we have Councilor Larson ready to read that proclamation.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow council members. Tonight we are going to be reading the proclamation for the City of Oak Harbor, Office of the Mayor Bob Severns, in response to Civility First. Whereas in order to create a community where we are each treated with civility and respect, each of us affirm that we will do the following. Whereas value honesty and goodwill while striving to solve problems, and attempt genuinely to understand the point of view of others, and model civil behavior and tone online and as well as in public by being kind while maintaining the right to vigorously disagree, acting respectfully toward others, including opponents, listening to those who disagree with us as well as supporters, making only accurate statements when defending a position, refraining from characterizing adversaries as evil, and whereas challenge disrespectful behavior courteously, and whereas encourage any person or organization working on our behalf to meet these same standards for civil discourse, and whereas renew our efforts if we fail and forgive others if they fail. Now, therefore, we, Mayor Bob Severns, and the council members of the City of Oak Harbor do hereby proclaim civility first in the City of Oak Harbor, and we commit to encouraging and promoting civility within our municipality and to cultivate a culture of civility among city employees and the public, and encourage all citizens to join the Pledge of Civility First. Signed this 16th day of October 2018, Bob Severns, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Larson. Nice job. I'd like to introduce the president of Civility First, who's with us here tonight, Kathy Whitmire. So, Kathy.
Thank you very much for that proclamation. And thank you for being willing to make that proclamation, especially at this moment when we are seeing around us people making decisions the other way. In this last month, we have been, as you may be aware, supporting Civility Month. We have held workshops in conjunction with Snow Isle Libraries in all of the libraries in Island County. We also, there are Civility Story Hours that include a puppet show with 3 nice mice. There is a Civility art and photography show called Capturing a Moment of Civility in Your Community. It is currently hanging in Coopville. It will hang in all of the libraries in Island County. It will be here in Oak Harbor in November. And the good news is, I was sharing with Mayor Severns that it is 2 Oak Harbor high school students that have won the under 16 category. So they will each be receiving $100 and recognition at a gathering on October 27th. And those Oak Harbor students are Sarah McCantis and Sharon Sohn. So, Civility First will be coming to Oak Harbor in November with a book display in the library, as well as book lists, the story hours, and the art. So thank you for your work and for all you do to promote civility here in Oak Harbor and in Island County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, we will now move on to Section 3, our citizen comment period. This is a time when citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. To ensure comments are properly recorded, please state your name clearly into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please, to ensure all citizens have sufficient time to speak. So, open citizen comment period. Okay. Doesn't look like a mad rush to the dais or to the podium, so we will move along then to our item number 4, consent agenda. We have items number A through G, and I think would you like to pull? Would anybody like to pull anyone? Yes, Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. Request that we pull item G, the fire fees, from the consent agenda so that I may abstain from that vote.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? Okay. Then before we talk about items A through F, I do want to announce that we have our new appointee, Debbie Schaub, in our audience tonight, our new appointee to our Planning Commission. I'd like to welcome Debbie to the City Council meeting tonight, and welcome to our Planning Commission. I think that's going to pass here momentarily. So, anyone have any other thing to discuss on consent items? If not, then we will pull item number G. Items A through F will be approved as presented. We will pull item number G, and Councilor Larson would like to abstain.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, so then that will, I guess, we'll take a vote on that one then. Councilor Servadius?
I let him off the hook last time, but I know his answer for abstaining, I think. You're a recipient.
Yes, I would be. I am in one of the subject properties of that resolution, so we thought it prudent I not vote on that.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Councilor
Sorry,
Servadius.
Mayor, I'll just move it along. I'll move to approve consent agenda item G, resolution number 18-23.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to approve on the consent agenda item number G, resolution number 1823. Motion by Councilor Servadius, second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We will move to the comment section then. I think we're on section number 5. I have a couple of things here. Also, under Proclamation, I want to make a recommendation or recognition, excuse me, of the Friends of the Library Week, which is October 21st through the 27th. Friends of the Library are nonprofit volunteer organizations that bring together involved, caring people who support and promote the services and programs of their community library. Through their fundraising efforts, Friends groups undertake projects and supply items that fall outside the established budget of their local library. These dedicated volunteers give many hours of service and raise thousands of dollars to enhance their local libraries. So proclamation, recognition, Friends of the Library. Also, last but not least, the NLC Congressional City Conference is in March in Washington, D.C. I'd like a discussion on who might be willing and able and wanting to attend. I will be traveling there, and it's pretty much up to council as to your desires. I think I have those dates in March, and wondering if we have some counselors that would be anxious to go. Do you?
The week of March 14th.
I think that's right. I think it's March. I have the 13th, 14th, and the 12th, 13th, and 14th, and that's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it looks like, well, it's also Monday the 11th.
Yeah, the 11th,
Okay.
yeah.
So Monday the 11th through Thursday the 14th. And it's probably, it's possible that the 14th would be the Pentagon, the visit to the Pentagon. If not, it'd be Friday. So, Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. I would be interested in going. It's been a couple of years, but I'd always give deference to new council members if they're able to attend and haven't attended. I'd also, Patricia, I saw her somewhere. I think we've got some, we didn't use our out-of-state travel, or very little of it, for the council in 2018. So I don't know what was left over, but I think if we had those numbers in front of us, that might help drive the decision as to how many we could actually send. I know we traditionally send 2-ish with council member Munns, and so, but I know we didn't send people last time, so there's probably some budget there that would carry. I know we're entering a new budget cycle, but that money just kind of disappears otherwise, and it wasn't used this last time.
I see Patricia back there. I'm not sure that she's prepared to.
Right, I didn't think you, right, and so I wasn't prepared to make a decision either. I have an interest, but like I said, I always like to make sure that the newer council members, if they have not attended that trip, get a chance to go.
Councilor Larson.
Absolutely. That's something that I'd be very interested in attending, but I would also like to make sure that we are fiscally able to do so.
Mm-hmm. You know, I have the month-ending report that I did bring for out-of-state travel, and I believe that we've got a little over $5,000 in 2018 money. So I think we would have plenty of money to send 3. maybe even or Mayor Pro Tem, I'm not sure about your availability or interest.
I should be fine if you.
Okay. So I think it's possible that we could go with 3 besides Mayor Pro Tem and myself. Yep.
And I do not have a desire to go.
Okay. Councilor Wassinger?
I would be unavailable to go, so I couldn't go
Okay.
this time.
Okay. So I think then what we'll do is we'll communicate with Councilor Wiesner and Councilor Heiss, and I think I agree that if Councilor Wiesner has an interest, we'll give him some priority there too. And so I'll communicate back with you soon. Okay? Okay? Anyone else? Okay. That concludes my comments. So we'll go to council comments at this time. Anyone in council? Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I know how much everyone loves change. So there's change coming rapidly in the way of technology to the city of Oak Harbor. I just want to get in front of this just a little bit. Next week, if all goes well, we're going to go live with a new phone system. So staff, if you happen to be watching this, or I just want to get the word out on the street, do not get mad at Patricia, don't get mad at Sandra or anyone else that's been involved. Feel free to dial extension 4565. That's my extension. And you can blame Joel for helping push these timelines along. Actually, we ought to thank the district. The school district helped push these timelines, and it's actually been a good thing. What at first seemed fairly almost insurmountable and daunting, I think we're taking it in stride. I'll wait to give kudos, but there's been some ringleaders that have really helped us, Patricia and Sandra, obviously, but lots of people involved in that transition. But if that goes live next week, do not call Patricia freaking out. Don't call Carla or anyone. Feel free to dial 4565, and that'll ring through to my cell phone, and we'll try and get you through it. So, and thank you, Mayor, and everyone else for supporting the change. It's going to be a big one, but it's going to be a good one.
Thank you, and everybody that has spent so much time on that. Other council? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. This morning, I was privileged to attend the Oak Harbor Education Foundation breakfast for Bud Skinner in his honor, and it's just magnificent what our school district is doing. The innovative learning that different teachers have applied for learning grants to do with their students, and the robotics. I mean, it's not just one thing. They help sponsor water in Africa, and then the prosthesis for students or adults, the ramps that they've built. I mean, it's just the gardens and what they're doing, and pioneer study. I mean, just the music department at the high school. I mean, it's just phenomenal what our kids are accomplishing. If just given a little bit of money and a creative idea from a teacher and said, go for it. And it was magnificent. And one of our elementary schools was one of 50 to receive an award in Washington, D.C. for some things that they've done. I mean, you think about that. All the schools in the whole United States, and one of ours was one of 50, and they flew people there to accept the award. So it was outstanding. The other thing is our grant for the pavilion. Really, yes, Nicole Tesh put it together, but we had a superb team. It was financing and all the parts from that, and then we had Hank. I mean, it was just so many departments that put that together. I think it's unfair to say it was just one person. Public Works, I mean, you just name it. It included everybody, legal going over it. I mean, just trying to make sure that the T's were crossed and the I's, and can't say enough that our staff really, when there's a grant or something, they all pull together and put it together. But I think finance had the most influence. But I mean, it just took everybody on a team. Oh, I've got that part, I've got this part. So just thank you. I'm sure I'm leaving someone out, but it isn't just one person. It was a team effort, and that's what's really great about our city, is that it takes a team to do it. So thank you from the bottom of our heart. Council members, we appreciate it, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else? Council comments? Okay, we will conclude that part and go to city administrator comments.
First of all, I want to thank for the flowers here. It helps me be very civil looking at these flowers. So appreciate that. So, moving on, it was my pleasure to represent the city or be the city's representative for the Impaired Driving Impact Panel of Island County yesterday. I appreciate that opportunity, a great program and great community effort in calling the awareness to driving under the influence. And there was a presentation quite informative by the outgoing sheriff talking about marijuana and how it's affecting the driving and affecting the whole area. I'm sure Nikki's more aware of that, but I'm new to this state and the challenges that we face. So certainly a great organization. I want to call your attention to the very fitting colored, fall-colored calendar here, and call your attention to some of the changes here, in exception to the regular meetings. Tuesday, October 30th, we have the special workshop meeting for the budget. Wednesday, we have the regular council meeting moved from Tuesday to Wednesday, so it's a special council meeting. And then also down further there, November 13th, we have the 1 to 4 p.m. special workshop for the budget. That's part 1, and part 2 is continued on November 15th from 1 to 4. So your participation, and if you're available, please attend to become informed of the budget process. And then moving on, I really wanted to call attention to the annual process for the 2019 Comprehensive Plan Amendment. And it's a call for applications, and I wanted to make sure we get the word out that applications are due by Monday, December 3rd. And the Development Services Director, Steve Powers, is here if anybody has any questions on that comprehensive process. A comprehensive plan change process. All right, with that, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Engineer Arvidsson to give us the presentation on the clean water facility.
Good evening. It's time for our clean water facility project update. We have a lot of people out working hard at our treatment plant, a lot of things going on. Hoffman tried to hire this guy on, but he's pretty dedicated to Windjammer Park, so he's still out there. One obvious thing is the Windjammer Bank building is now gone. We're finishing up demolition. It's down. We're pulled up most of the slab work, but we've opened up a new corridor there. So that part is coming to completion after all this time. This is our view of our splash park. These little wire cage things are actually will be the false boulders. So that's moving along quite nicely. We're actually going to start pouring some of that stuff next week. Right now they're doing a lot of mechanical stuff, but everybody's getting pretty excited about the splash park. I think our team is more excited than the kids will be right now, so that's what we talk about a lot. Our membrane system, we're actually putting it through its paces, working on clean water. This is the membrane system actually doing the back flush cycle with the air. So that's moving along. We have our manufacturer, which is Suez Water, doing that. So it's quite an extensive process, so that's coming along nicely. We did a major sewer transfer, all the sewage in town. We had to pump it around a manhole so we could actually get in and work. So we actually shut down City Beach for a week. That was completed successfully. Traffic came back to normal. Now we have sewage right up to the Headworks facility now, so we're ready to get started with it pretty quick. As you walk around the facility, there's a lot of mechanical things and kind of interesting. That wire thing on the left is actually our UV disinfection system. And all those wires actually feed bulbs. I look at that, so that's kind of interesting. The thing on the right is actually a flexible coupling that's a chemical tank, holds sodium hypochlorite, and that's for seismic. So if we get to an earthquake, the pipes won't break off. So that was kind of interesting picture there. In the park itself, quite a bit more work going on. We are paving the crescent right now. They've been paving yesterday and today, and we'll probably be out of there this week. Quite a bit of hardscape working on. We're pouring sidewalk slabs every day now, so seeing a lot of trucks going in and out of there. So that's coming along nicely. Also, I didn't bring any pictures, but we're starting the landscaping process on the north side of the crescent. You can sort of see the topsoil spreading out there, so they'll be planting that very shortly. It's interesting to look at where we've come. This is actually a picture from April 2017 that shows our old Windjammer Park, the RV park, and everything like that. And that was just a little over a year and a half ago almost. And this is what it looks like today. It's major changes. It's kind of one of those things where, as an engineer, you draw these drawings and make all these nice things, and you actually see from this photo it's actually coming out like you actually drew on there. So that was actually photographed on October 3rd, and it's changed a lot even since then. So we are making progress. Sometimes it's such a laid out site, you really can't see the progress because you see one spot, but when you see it in whole, it's a very busy place. Recent activities, like I say, we are working on SCADA software and installation, basically getting all the equipment to work. That's a very big part of the process right now. We're working on a very hard checklist to get everything up and running. Our operator training is ongoing, but that's starting to taper off, but they will be starting the Suez training in a week or so. One thing that is happening, and I'm real proud of our staff to be doing right now, is our operators are now testing systems. They're actually making them run on manual. And the head operator, Phil Matthews, came into me Thursday last week and says, we're going to start making this stuff go. So we're running pumps and blowers and a lot of systems on manual, and they're really putting time on it, really making it go. So I'm really excited about that, because if they can run it on hand, all this automatic stuff is going to be superfluous. Construction-wise, like I say, it's mostly ongoing equipment testing and startup right now. We are tapering down. We have about 80 to 90 workers on site, but the actual clean water side is actually starting to slow down. Most of them are actually out in the park now. We are continuing some electrical installation. We are in the process of starting up the membrane system. That takes a little time. It's kind of intensive and quite a bit checking on going then. As I showed, we did demolish the Whidbey Bank building, so we have open space there now. And we are completing the Sols building. That's on track right now. We're actually going to start the centrifuges up, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Windjammer Park, a lot of mass earthwork is complete. We're still doing some fine work. The irrigation system is being installed. Most of the major irrigation headers are installed, but we have to finish in the irrigation system north of the Crescent is pretty much down. But we can't get to the south of the Crescent until we get to finish up some of those buildings, because right now we're driving all over it. So that's kind of lagging a little bit. That's just because we started some of those buildings a little later, but we're catching them up. Hardscaping and paving is the major thrust right now. A lot of that going on. The East Kitchen, West Kitchen, and Pavilion are well underway. We poured the foundations for the West Kitchen and the Pavilion, and we're starting the wall system on the West Kitchen. So those are coming up fast. As I said, the Splash Park is continuous installation. Project budget-wise, we're still at $148,925. That's a million, by the way, for our estimated construction budget. Last month was a little slow on cash flow. That was probably due to some slowdown due to the strike. And we just, sometimes our contractors, we get into a billing cycle, so we'll have a low billing cycle and a high billing cycle. But we're expended at 131 million, with about 17,900,000 left in the remaining balance. We are still planning to have our ribbon cutting November 29th at 1 o'clock, so I hope it's on your calendar. Schedule highlights, we are lagging a little bit right now. I was hoping to actually have the plant up and operational this week. We're lagging a week or two more on that. Still very strong. It's just a lot of stuff that needs to be done right, so we are pushing on it, and we have a very strong plan to get it going. We're looking at this, with that, we'll push off our Sols startup a couple of weeks too into December. Basically, it's sewage solids startup and is completion. That's mostly driven by the fact that we got to build the biosolids before we can run the solid system. So there's a lag in there that's in there, but mechanically things are coming together. So I think we're well on our way. May to end of this year, we're probably going to January with site improvements and Windjammer Park improvements. We are very much on track to hand the lagoons back to the Navy December 31st. We have a 60-day notice that we need to send out, so we're getting that into the system now to officially do that. We will be coming back in the spring to complete some weather-related park improvements. So we're planning to have everything's up and running for the 4th of July and plan a big grand opening. Public outreach, if you want to reach more about the project, you can reach us at www.oakharborcleanwater.org. You can call our phone line at 914-7000. We do not have an answering service on it anymore, so you leave a message, we'll get back to you. We've had an answering service on it for several years, but we've discontinued that. You can email us at treatmentplan@oakharbor.org. And we do not have community drop-in hours anymore, but we can take tours on appointment. Right now, we're not going to do that for several weeks just because we're real busy and breaking that time loose there. But we do encourage people to come down and look at it. Excuse me. Keep reading that one. Questions?
Council, questions? Nobody, audience? Okay, thank you, Brett. Nice job. Okay, we will move on to, we don't have anything under section 6 or 7. We will move on to item number 8A, professional service agreement, Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce, Windjammer Park Public Relations and Marketing Amendment 1, and I think we have our City Administrator, Blaine Olborn.
Yes, as previously mentioned, the mayor and I have entered into an agreement with the Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce to perform public relations and marketing for the Windjammer Park. The initial agreement was for $7,699 and runs through December 31st, 2018. The mayor and I would like to continue the effort and need the approval of the council to do so, to continue the marketing through July 3rd, 2019 when we do the grand opening. So you have the attached amendment number 2 that's been approved by the, with the help of the of staff and the city attorney to do that effort and continue that marketing, and I'll take any questions.
Yes, Councilor Olmberg.
Is there public comments before we take questions from us?
Oh, yeah, we certainly can. Open it up to the public for any questions or input. Okay. So, ready to go?
I have a question.
Okay.
What involvement will Enviro Issues have? There has been some conversation with them, I understand, relative to the promotion of the park.
There'll be some minimal. They'll continue to maintain the website through July 15th. And this was brought when we talked about the workshop, and we talked about the possibility of reaching out and having a local organization do the marketing. So at a future council meeting, you'll get the Enviro Issues amendment there, and it'll exclude the primary activity related to Windjammer Park, and that will be done by the chamber, who's agreed to do it, and they've got a lot of experience in doing that.
Oh, no, wait a minute. I heard two things. I heard that the chamber's going to be doing the promotion for the Windjammer Park opening to promote. Say this again.
Okay, I'll slow down.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. When the initial proposal that was brought forward, when they were talking about extending the Enviro Issues contract, it included a large portion, around about the same amount as this contract, around $40,000. We talked about the possibility at that time when we were doing that discussion to instead involve the chamber in doing that. So the mayor and I entered into initial proposal, and then we're proposing in addition to that will bring it around that $40,000. So when Enviro Issues has other components that will overlap a little bit, but not substantially, and that component, what they initially talked about, won't be there and will be done by the chamber instead.
What do you anticipate Enviro Issues amendment will be to their existing contract?
That's mainly related to the continuation for the clean water facility. And I don't remember the dollar amount. I mean, if you want to see them together, it probably would be helpful. I mean, if you delay it, we have our DPW Rosen here to answer any questions, and I think we've given that a lot of thought, so hopefully she could help enlighten you on that.
The Enviro Issues Amendment will also, well, actually, it'll be a separate contract between the city and Enviro Issues, and we will include some assistance in helping us with the public outreach and education related to biosolids and water reuse. Brett, did you want to add anything else to that? Yeah, Brett.
We have just our general project communications that we do, the website, the emails, we do send out various missions and science and stuff. Then we have, of course, the other services, reuse and biosolids, and just we had them for support for events if we want to have them.
I was just curious, to what extent are we extending Enviro Issues relative to the completion of this project, and how it relates to what we're talking about and voting on right now for the Chamber's role?
Right now, any help, assistance they give on the 4th of July would be by request. We have built some tasks in for them, but at this point, most of their work is going to be helping the project get finished, and some other tasks on top of that.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there will be a potential help with the biosolids, isn't it?
Yeah, we were talking about doing biosolids and reuse and having an education program for that, which is not really the clean water facility. It's more of an operational, educational need we have. Yeah, we're starting these new programs.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. To keep on with Enviro, will they be doing the marketing for the ribbon cutting and opening?
That's already in their services,
Okay.
and that's planned for November or so. But after that, they're done.
Pretty much, okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. I sit on the board for the chamber, so when we do vote, I will abstain.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, what do we? Yes, Councilor Allenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommended action here is I make a motion, or I will make a motion to authorize the city administrator and the mayor to sign an agreement, amendment number 1, to the professional service agreement with Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce for public relations and marketing of the Windjammer Park project, the amount not to exceed $32,568, increasing the total contract to an amount not to exceed $40,267.
Second?
So we've got a motion and a second that is exactly matching the recommended action. Any other input or questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we have one abstention, right? Okay, so that passes 4 votes, and we will move on to item number 8B, Professional Services Agreement with Semrau Engineering and Surveying Amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We've had some staff vacancies in engineering, and development applications have increased. So last January, under the mayor's signature authority, we entered into a contract with John Semrau, engineering and surveying, for consultant services for review of engineering and survey design on an on-call basis. Mr. Semrau has done a great job for us. He's been very timely and thorough in his reviews. He is nearing that $30,000. So we are before you tonight to ask for an amendment to that contract to allow us to continue those services while we search for staff. So we're asking for $70,000 and to extend the contract through 2019 for on-call services. We also had an amendment recently because we don't have a city engineer on staff, and there are certain documents that require the signature of a city engineer, such as boundary line adjustments, plat maps, those kinds of documents. So we did amend Mr. Semrau's contract to allow him to sign as the city engineer for those types of documents until we have a city engineer on staff. So I'm available for any questions.
Okay, I guess first we'll open it up to the audience, see if there's any. Okay, seeing none. Council? Yes, Councilor Umber.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Rosen, since we don't have a city administrator on the staff right now.
Engineer.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Blaine.
Sorry. We'll hire you right back. Don't go away. City engineer. The cost of this is the $70,000. Is that offset by not having a salary for a city engineer relative to our budget?
So we also have a project engineer position that has been vacant since last December, and that is the funding that we have used for Mr. Semrau's contract at this point. But yes, we have two regular employee engineering positions that are vacant.
That were in the budget that are vacant right now?
Yes, that is correct.
And so those will more than offset this?
That is
Okay.
correct.
More than offset it by how much?
I don't know. But I know salary and benefits for the city engineer are over $100,000.
Okay.
So that more than covers $70,000.
Okay.
And the project engineer, probably between salary and benefits, is probably over $100,000 as well.
Okay,
So-
which we've already spent part of that.
We've spent
yeah.
almost 30,000 of
Yeah.
that this year.
Right, plus we're in the search for finding a city engineer at the moment.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Kathy. Quick question. If I'm reading this correctly, the way this is written is we're looking at increasing this by a maximum amount of up to $70,000. But should we fill those positions prior to that? Are we committed to that entire $70,000, or does that cover? Or we just use what we have committed to up until that point?
It's what we have used up to that point. It's an on-call contract, so if we need his services, then he's available to provide those to us. But we are not committed to $70,000 to him over through 2019.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Wassinger.
I will move to authorize the mayor to sign professional service agreement amendment number 2 with Semrau Engineering and Surveying to review engineering and survey design on an on-call basis, extending the contract expiration date from December 31st, 2018 to December 31st, 2019, and increasing the contract amount by $70,000, thereby increasing the total contract cost from $30,000 to a not to exceed amount of $100,000.
Second.
So we've got a motion by Councilor Wassinger and a second by Mayor Pro Tem, exactly as it reads in your recommended action. Any other discussion? Or all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. So we will move on to item number 8C, Professional Services Agreement, WAIF, Animal Control Holding Facility. We have our Police Chief Dresker.
Mayor, council members, thank you. So I'm here today to talk to you about the WAIF contract and ideally to get you to authorize the mayor to sign a new or a modified contract. So I'll read the background off the sheet here real quick and then I'll talk a little further about it. The City of Oak Harbor currently has a contract with Whidbey Animals Improvement Foundation, WAIF, for the sheltering of animals that expires in December 31st, 2018. Staff is proposing to alter the current process and therefore no longer lease the facility located in Oak Harbor. The new agreement will allow animals to be taken directly to one of 2 WAIF facilities for sheltering. There will be a temporary holding solution in Oak Harbor for situations such as late night holdings with pending transfer or transport to WAIF. And then staff would recommend that the city enter into a modified agreement with WAIF. So just what you have, I think, in your packet is the modified WAIF agreement. I believe you got a signed copy from WAIF, so they've seen this and they're good with it. What I didn't do is do a side-by-side comparison, but I want to point out just what the differences are on the modifications so that you're aware of that. Basically, the modifications are pretty simple. One thing that it does do in 2B, it modifies what it talked about was a 6-day holding. So if we give an animal to WAIF, they're supposed to hold it by ordinance for 6 days prior to going to their possession, them actually taking ownership, so to speak, of that animal. That's gone like 4, 5, 6 days over the 20-year history in Oak Harbor. We've put it to mirror current ordinance. And part of the reason for that is at some point here in the near future, I want to entertain or talk to you further about that, whether we modify that again, and I'll do that at the appropriate time. For right now, what the contract language just says is per city ordinance. So whatever ordinance we have, they'll be maintaining that day count. So right now it's 6. On 4A, it talks about licensing, and as we move, if we move this and we take our animals to the WAIF facility and people are going there to get their animals, if that's what they do, then WAIF would like the ability to issue licenses there. They wanted that for a while. It really actually does us some benefit to have them be able to do that process. What that section does, it doesn't dictate they will do it. It says we have the ability to give them that authority if we want to. Number 6 also talks about hours and access, and basically that's just modified because it tells them that to give us access for our officers at night or animal control when they're closed to their facility, essentially. And this basically mirrors what they already do with Island County Sheriff's Office. In the new contract, it talks on Section 8, and in the old one, it's Section 6, it talks about compensation. So the differences there is we'll go from paying WAIF $102,000 to paying them $50,000 in a new contract. So it modifies that contract amount based on a reduction. It also talks about just the contract term where the old one expires. The new one will expire in December of 2019. And then if we, both parties enter an agreement, we'd have the option to extend it. And then we also removed an attachment A, which referred to the old facility. Now, as you'll recall, I supplied council members with a packet. I don't remember how long ago, it's been a month ago or 2 maybe, talking about the WAIF facility. I do have just a cheat sheet if you'd like that. Basically what it says is, would you like me to hand this out to you folks or just cover it? Okay. Essentially, if you remember back to that first packet that you read, which was about 10 pages, this is basically a graph summary. The top just talked about our sheltering costs over the years. The middle graph you see there talked about if we wanted to maintain that WAIF building, which we talked about and seemed to be in agreement we do not want to, what our cost would be for that. The bottom one articulates or shows basically if we enter into this new agreement with WAIF and modify our lease, in other words, don't maintain that lease on that local facility, what our cost savings would be, which is the 76. It's actually around 78,000. So that's where we'd be at with the new contract. Basically, what the contract does is, if we drop the lease and we don't maintain that current facility, then we will take our animals to the facility down in Coopville, as we discussed, or cats we could also take to the local shelter here. And WAIF, the reason for reduction in contract is WAIF would no longer have to staff the Oak Harbor facility, and we would no longer have to maintain the lease. Now, as I'd mentioned before, we'd reached out to the owner of that building as far as our lease, because it expires in May, about whether or not we wanted to terminate that earlier. I don't believe the owner is interested in doing that. So in fact, what we'd end up doing is maintaining that lease till the expiration to honor that lease, which actually may be better off for us because it gives us a transitional period. And what we will do is utilize that building as that temporary holding facility until that lease expires. So if you'll see on that graph, I had earmarked $15,000 for a local temporary solution by working out an agreement with the local vet. We actually would not need to do that until after May because we'd utilize the facility for that up until that point. So that would modify those figures basically in that. And then at the end of May, we would just drop that lease. We would no longer be responsible for that facility. and we would just utilize the current WAIF structures, which of course were not in existence back when all this was first started in the first place, as we discussed before. So the recommended action is to authorize the mayor to sign a service contract, modified service contract with Whidbey Animals Improvement Foundation for the animal control holding facility services, going from the $102,000 down to the $50,000. So that would be the rate moving forward. And I'm open to any questions.
Okay, before we do that, we'll ask the audience if they've got any. Okay, seeing none, Councilor Larson.
Chief, how you doing tonight?
Good.
So, you made a very comprehensive pitch to us about a month ago. We got some great information. I just want to reiterate the way I understand it. We're going to be saving quite a bit of money, over $70,000 a year. We streamline this process, and we don't get into the building maintenance and repair business, which gets a little messy after a while as well. So my question that I always ask you, because you seem to have given us an awful lot of upsides to this decision, what's the downside?
I think we discussed it last time. The only downside, as we discussed before, and I don't really view it as a downside, but the only thing that may come up is, again, the WAIF facility that's out there in Coupeville now is a fantastic facility. If you haven't visited, like last time, I encourage you to do that. If somebody's animal is picked up and has already been moved from Oak Harbor by our animal control officer or an officer taking them down there, then the animal will be at the WAIF facility in Coupeville if it's a dog. And so somebody will have to drive that. I think I said 15 minutes. Somebody said you were losing license hours, or 20 minutes or whatever it takes to get there to take care of their animal. So that'd be potentially a downside, but I think it's reasonable based on what we're talking about. And then I'm not sure I can think of another downside to this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Olmberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, the savings here represents $76,000 and some change. Does that savings include the cost of transportation from Oak Harbor vicinity to WAIF?
It does. The savings is a little bit more. I factored in about, I said like it's 78,000. I actually factored in a couple thousand to try to account for gas expenditures. And what we would end up doing is trying to arrange that with our animal control based on whatever the animals are. That's why part of the reason why we have a local holding facility. So our local holding facility is somewhere where we could keep a dog for a day, and the next day the animal control comes in, and midday if he gets another dog, he transports two. So it's how to economically figure that out. It'll be a new process, so we'll be figuring that out as we go a little bit with that. WAIF initially had talked about wanting cats just to come to the Coupeville facility. I told them that could be burdensome on us. So they've agreed to put a couple of cages down here where we can put the cats into the facility here. That they're actually transitioning buildings right now, but they've agreed to put a couple holding cages down there for cats, so that we can economize that process instead of every day running a cat out or something similar to that. So there will be more gas expenditure going there and back, but we'll work out the best we can to economize that process.
And it's more than just gas, it's the
wear and tear on the
mileage costs on the vehicle.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Larson.
I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a services contract with Whidbey Animals Improvement Foundation for the animal control holding facility services at an annual cost of $50,000.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Motion by Councilor Larson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Mund. Just as the recommended action reads in your packet. Seeing no other questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief. I know you spent a lot of time and effort on that, and I appreciate that. Thank you. We are now on our last regular agenda item, and that is item number 10A, Island County Joint Advisory Board and Whidbey Camano Islands tourism request. And if you'll recall, at our last meeting, I thought I had gotten a letter before you, and I had not made that happen. I apologize for that. You have that letter in your packet tonight. I think before we get too far into the discussion, I do want to make sure that it's clear that these monies are the 2% funds that we're discussing, which is governed by, those funds are governed by the LTAC process. So any change in that process is actually going to need to go to the LTAC people and then come back to us in the form of a request if there's any change. But we have a tourism board member here. Our councillor Wassinger has been on the tourism board now for a time, and in discussion, as you'll recall, we had the Sherry Wyatt, the marketing manager of the Whidbey and Camano Islands Tourism Board here, and I had talked to you briefly about the letter that I'd gotten from their board requesting us analyze our funding and a request for more funds. So without any further ado, I think in talking to Councillor Wassinger that we have talked about a potential formula or something, but I guess I'd like to open it up to council to see if there's any input. We've had a fairly long process. At one point in time, we were giving 1% to that tourism board, and then I think in 2010, the council decided to go to a set amount of $20,000 a year, and now the tourism board would like us to reconsider that. So that brings us to our president. Did you want to say anything, Councilor?
Sure. Yes,
Okay.
actually, we did give the full 2% to them when this was formed in the year 2000, and then it was in effective 2005 that we reduced it to 1%. And then in 2010, we reduced it again to the flat 20,000. And there's two 2% pots of money, and this is the additional 2%. But it is, you're right, we can, as a council, authorize, and I believe I'm right on this, but if I'm wrong, stop me or tell me, to change that it's an interlocal agreement between Island County, us, Coupeville, Langley, Camano. So, but it has to go through LTAC first. It has to come from there. It has to go through that process, and then we can authorize to amend that interlocal agreement or terminate it, which I don't recommend. So I have been on the committee for a little bit now, a year about, and in talking to Sherry and the mayor, and I apologize for missing Sherry's presentation, but I did watch it, and she was pretty accurate. She was very accurate about the things that they're working on that committee. I wasn't around in 2010, so I don't know the ins and outs of why we reduced our contribution to that fund to $20,000. But I think now, whatever it was that happened that caused that, and being on the committee, I see that they are doing good things. And I will say, too, that this is a positive issue for us to be dealing with. We've got all kinds of great things going on and people wanting to use that LTAC money for. So I've always told myself that this is a really good problem to have, right? People wanting more money to do these great things. I see the Island County Tourism Committee as maybe more of a broad use of LTAC money. They're doing things on a more national, international scale, going to conferences in New York City and doing a lot of social media, a lot of advertising at airports. And, I think it's more of a broad marketing effort than maybe what our local events do, which I think are great too. It's just comparing apples to oranges. And I would agree, and I've talked to the mayor about this and Sherry, from my perspective being on the committee, I would agree with increasing their funding. Now I don't want to throw out a number because I think that it has to make sense, and I'm not interested in reducing maybe monies that go towards our chamber for marketing and operations and our local events, the marathons and all those great things. I'm not in agreement with necessarily decreasing anyone's funding that's already, been for years having funds from that. But I would be in agreement with, how well we're doing with these funds and what Patricia's telling us for our increases in our revenue in these funds of sharing some of those increases with this and increasing our funding for the Island County tourism. So I thank you for putting this together, Patricia. So that would be I would fully support putting this on to the LTAC committee and following that process and getting their input for sure. So yeah, so those are my thoughts. And I will say too that the committee is doing some great things with lodging. They are in this new budget implementing a system that makes it much easier for tourists to book hotels directly through all Whidbey Island or Island County lodging are going to be able to use this system. It's great, I think I think it's going to be a great thing. It's going to reduce their fees from them using things like Expedia and some of those other big name drivers for online booking. They're implementing a new system that's becoming very popular that is going to be very beneficial for our lodging, and I'm hopeful that all of these things that they're doing are going to just keep increasing this funding for all of us. So that is my opinion.
Thank you. So, Patricia, did you want to go through the...
Yeah, I'd kind of like to go through this so you guys see what my attempt was to give you some information.
Okay.
So if you look at this chart, the first line, of course, is the years. The next one is, this is only the additional 2% that I included. There's another one that we get as the initial 2%. This is the additional that was implemented in 2002 timeframe. Then this is the blue, light blue is the history of our payments to the Island County Tourism, so I list those all out. 1% of the 2% is actually 50% of the additional 2%, so that I calculated that out for the same time period. The highlighted in yellow is just to highlight that we actually paid that 1% from 2005 through 2009, as Councilmember Wassinger indicated. Then I gave two other options that accomplished, I think, or could potentially accomplish what I understood Councilmember Wassinger wanted, which was if we said we would give them 20% of the additional 2%, they would be getting, based on our revenues now, more than the $20,000, but the language would state that it shall be at a minimum of $20,000 or annually, or the 50% or the 20% or the 15%, whichever one the LTAC committee would recommend back to council. And it would be looking at prior year's revenues. So that way it would always be a look back, and it wouldn't have to be done as the revenues were coming in. So the two of them that were closest I thought were the 20% and the 15%. 20% actually gets them over the 20,000 as the revenues increase. The 15%, they don't really start going up very high until there's, well, at 146,000, that's when they initially go over. So those are my options, and if you would like more presented to the LTAC committee, if you choose to refer it to the LTAC committee to be considered, I can easily do that for the committee and council. But it does need to be referred to the LTAC committee, 45 days for them to decide and come back to the council before action can be taken.
And if we do decide that we want to refer it to LTAC committee, we need to make a motion to that effect.
Yes, council needs to approve that.
Okay. So, discussion, Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I haven't been involved in this as much as you have, Erica, but some questions have come to mind. To just either add or take away money just because we have an emotional feeling about something doesn't really cut it for me. It has mostly, what is the percentage of contribution is Oak Harbor making to the LTAC's bank account, if I use that term. And for example, I would want to know, for all of the county money that's related to this issue, what part comes from Oak Harbor's contribution, Coupeville, Langley, and generally the unincorporated area of Island County.
The Island County Tourism has a report that I think Councilmember Wassinger has.
It's in your packet, Rick, on page
283.
Yeah, 283, I think it is.
and it's not the top box, it's the next box down.
So you
Shows what all the different jurisdictions have given over since 2011. Oh, my iPad keeps flipping its screen. I can't get it to hold still. I need Joel.
You have to look sideways.
I think I'll look sideways at
Yes,
this.
there we go. So, oh, it's okay.
So in 2017,
Oh,
looking sideways,
It's okay.
unincorporated Island County.
Well, I'm gonna work on some numbers on this. You have the data available.
I do.
But that is meaningful to me. And also, if the data is available for when we have our events in Oak Harbor, for example, the Whidbey Island Marathon, the Music Fest, the Hydro, the Pig Fest, I probably left some out too, but those are major events that bring people here. I would like to, do we have the data that says we get these little spikes in the hotel?
We don't get a real clear picture. I know last year during the LTAC committee meeting deciding on grants, the hotels are part of the committee. There's 3 representatives there, and they were talking through that. I don't really have anything in writing. I don't know if they provided anybody on the committee with anything in writing, but they did talk about the events that were chosen for the grants. Part of how they were chosen by the group was the impact on the heads and beds. Yeah.
So for me, I would rather parallel that theory to the actual distribution of funds.
And
It's got to be data-driven for me.
Right, and we grant out 250 this year. We increased it by 15, which is the combination of the revenue anticipation from both the regular 2% and the additional. So we're trying to grant out what we're receiving in revenue or close to every year to the chamber, to the grantees.
Okay, well.
And I have, I could get you that information.
Okay, my interest in this is a data-driven decision and not an emotion-driven decision. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Servatius.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions, and I'll try and give a little bit of background, being on the Oak Harbor Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, serving as the chair. You mentioned this obviously would at some point need to go before that committee, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, for a authorization of dollars. But also, we've got an interlocal here. Do we need the bodies? Which one comes first? It appears in the agreement that all of the people involved in the interlocal would sign this as well.
Yes, so it goes before the LTAC committee first, and then the LTAC committee comes back with a recommendation to the legislative body, who then either accepts and approves that recommendation or declines to accept the recommendation. But if you accept it, then we go and amend the interlocal accordingly.
Okay, thank you. And similar to Councilmember Allenberg, I try and be as data-driven as possible. This is one of those that's a little more nebulous. I know, and obviously we don't have to make a decision tonight. I know, Patricia, you presented recently when we were talking, maybe it was about an LTAC conversation, you showed some, or it was in our budget packet, you showed some jumps in the revenue received from 2000, I'm sorry, and it was 2014, 15, and 16, there were 2 years that jumped up significantly, and I don't know how closely that corresponds or correlates to we gave the chamber some larger dollar amounts than we traditionally had in the past. And it would be interesting to see how those line up. If we've given those marketing dollars locally and we saw a significant jump in lodging tax revenues, that's probably a pretty decent indicator. Once again, it's a little bit nebulous, but it's a decent indicator that that's successful. And so when I look out handing out dollars, I mean, obviously we get a lot of requests. I want to try and keep that personally as focused locally as possible. So not just through the chamber, but organizations and or events that we know obviously are running in Oak Harbor. Those dollars, the ultimate goal is to put heads in beds and to rejuvenate or renew that tax. And not to say that Island County tourism board isn't doing that, it's just hard to make that conclusive jump that if we hand them an extra $5 or $10 or $20,000, that will put more heads in beds in Oak Harbor. There aren't a lot of lodging options. This is being a little selfish, I guess, but the people will stay here anyway. They almost have to. We have the bulk of the lodging. The other thing to point out is we still do give additional monies to Island County Tourism. I know we had a food and wine writers conference. They had applied.
They applied, through the marketing, through the grant process.
Right, and I don't know if we have any this year. I've got to get through that bulk of apps that just came in. So we also still, for unique projects or applications, we still do give to Island County Tourism in addition to the $20,000 that just goes out. So that's my thoughts. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. So, and I know in their letter they in their ask for more funds, they did state that they would not be asking for additional LTAC money.
They're not budgeted. They're not going to ask in 19 or 20.
Okay. So, so it sounds like if we're going to do anything, we need to refer it to LTAC. Isn't that correct, Nikki? Yes. And or do nothing. So it's up to council. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a comment. I've served as the chairman on both those boards, and the money was originally pulled because in comparison what Island County and Coupeville, and I don't even know if Langley gave any, it seemed like we were giving the majority of the money and getting the least effect. In other words, you always went to their website and you saw things for kind of the island, but it was in Langley and they barely mentioned Oak Harbor, but that has greatly improved with Sherry White. But mainly we felt like we were kind of getting gypped and they were using our money. I did attend the Writers International and it was fantastic. I mean, they're Japan and Australia, I mean, these were writers and they were so impressed. And the group organizing couldn't believe how beautiful and what a outstanding venue we had at the yacht club. And I mean, the weather couldn't have been better, and the merchants being so nice. I mean, we really got our money's worth just in that one event by having it and hosting it. So I too like the data, but by Councilman Wassinger going to the meeting, she'll kind of know, because I don't look at their website all the time. Are we still getting value or more value by contributing to this? I think it has definitely improved. I just don't know if we can correlate exactly, but if they're also helping market besides what the chamber does with the music festival and things like that, and I think they are, that we are still getting value because they reach out. Our chamber does a good job, but it's kind of a different group. They're reaching far out into magazines, destinations, you know, come to Whidbey Island and look at all these events we have. They were looking at airline magazines and, you know, they do state by state and then they'll do Washington and then they'll go, oh, well, in July, they have old-fashioned 4th of July parade and they have this and they have this. So some of it is hard to quantify, so I would really trust Councilman Wassinger's opinion. But I think LTAC committee will truly look at this and give us good suggestions coming back. And with financing, being able to document different things, it should be a win. So I'd like to move that we send this to the LTAC committee to reconsider and what monies they think or formula we should use to increase or keep it the same, and then have them refer it back to us.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to refer it to the LTAC committee and I'll trust our city clerk to have that. Any questions about it? Yes, Councilor Servatius.
Thank you. Do we open-ended refer, or do we have to put a dollar amount to this?
No, we don't generally put a dollar amount on it. If you want to, that's absolutely acceptable. You have in the past referred changes to the chamber's contract with a number on it. However, you can just refer it back with a copy of the letter for the LTAC's consideration, and if they would like to recommend a different amount or recommend that it stay the same, they can do that.
Yes, Councillor Larson.
Can we send that to them with a request, well, not with a dollar amount, but what this document is asking for is incremental increases up to 1% over the next few years. So if we send them a request that states an amount up to 1%, and then we as a governing body can choose whether or not to increase that or by what percent or amount after that, that gives them a ceiling to operate and under which we can decide how much the increase may be, if in fact there is to be one. Is that reasonable?
So you could put a ceiling on it and say, because that is referral of a change, and so you could say, up to this amount, give us a referral.
I'd like
Have a
to
ceiling on it.
You amend
I'd like to amend
the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem's motion to add a cap of 1%.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to amend the motion to add a cap of 1%. Any questions, or first we'll vote on that amendment? Councillor Surveys?
I know what you're going here for, but I don't know if you want to say it's not it's 100% of the 1%, I think is what you're going for, correct? If you're going to, just so they're clear?
Yes.
Wait, what is it?
So we just need to make sure that's communicated to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. It's not, I think the amendment set up to.
Because we're not giving the full 1% now, we're giving a flat 20%, so this would be up to 1%.
Up to 2%.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed, yes.
So the amendment is to amend the motion to not to exceed 1%. Any other input? First, we'll vote on that amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we'll go back to the motion to refer it to the LTAC committee, and that it'll be amended to not to exceed 1%. Any questions or input? Yes, Councillor Larson.
So just because this might be my last opportunity to weigh in, I was reading through this, and as I was looking at the data, because I was looking at historically, and Langley and Coupeville over the last couple of years have given anywhere between 150% up to almost 200% of what we're giving. And then as we received the presentation at our last meeting and looking at what they sent us here, I do believe we are getting some significant value from that. I would be in favor of increasing the amount of our 1%. I'm just not sure to what degree yet, and I think that's an excellent point to ponder before our next meeting. So I would approve of this motion and then figure out where we want to fall in on that, but I think an increase is definitely in order.
Mayor,
Ken?
I just want to make sure it has to be at the LTAC committee for 45 days before final action can be taken, so it won't be at our next meeting. Okay.
Councilor Survey.
Thank you. And just having gone through this, if LTAC comes back with, they make a recommendation, the council then accepts or can change or can't change?
You can't change it without referring it back. So you could say, no, we do not agree with their recommendation. We think that X amount is better, but then that amount has to be referred back to the LTAC committee. And if they don't come back with a referral that agrees with that, you can then take action and implement what you sent back to them the second time.
Okay. Ready to vote on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. So with that, at this time, the City Council is going to recess into an executive session as authorized under RCW 423110, Section 1, Section B, to consider the acquisition of real estate. The executive session will take place in the mayor's conference room and is expected to last approximately 20 minutes. The regular council meeting will reconvene afterwards. No action will be taken. Okay? Okay, it is, I'd like to reconvene our regular meeting of October 16th. Show that we are now out of the executive session, and we made no decisions, and I'm looking for a
Move we adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second from Councilman Ollenberg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.